How are you guys doing? Today is Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances that took place yesterday, as yesterday was Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. It was the winter solstice. And taking a quick look at where we are now, as we have 10 days left in the 2021 calendar year. We are in the midst of college football bowl season, as the teams that qualify for bowl games are ending their seasons day by day. At the same time, looking at what's going on in the NFL, we just got through with the last matchups for week 15 in the 18-week season. So there are 3 weeks of NFL football regular season left. Taking a look at what's going on with basketball, looking at college, we are about a month into the college basketball season, as there are still some undefeated teams. Looking at what's going on in the NBA, of course, is going to go strong until the season ends in about April. So they're about a month or two into that season. And of course, because we are close to the end of the calendar year, we are approaching the midway point for the 2021-22 soccer seasons. So of course, with that said, I'm going to jump right into the first bowl game from yesterday. And with that said, looking at what went down with the 24th ranked football team in the nation, the San Diego State Aztecs, faced off against the UT San Antonio Roadrunners, who came into this matchup unranked. This would be the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. San Diego State would end up beating UTSA 38-24. San Diego State outscored San Antonio 17-14 in the first half, and then they outscored them 21-10 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the UTSA Roadrunners were led by their starting quarterback, Frank Harris. Harris threw for 271 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. He also had another rushing yard. He had 272 total yards of offense. UTSA's leading rusher, Brendan Brady, had 16 carries for 76 yards, as he had the team's lone rushing touchdown. UTSA's leading receiver would be Zachary Franklin. He had 8 receptions for 89 yards, as he had one of the team's receiving touchdowns. The other receiving touchdown went to DeCorian Clark. He had 6 receptions for 72 yards, as he had the team's other receiving touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Denzel Feaster and Jamal Ligon finished with 8 tackles, as they went on to have he had half of a sack for himself. On the winning end of this matchup, the 24th ranked San Diego State Aztecs were led by their starting quarterback, Lucas Johnson. Johnson would end up throwing for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. He would also go on to run for 15 yards and a touchdown. He had 348 total yards of offense, and he had 4 touchdowns in his name. San Diego State's leading rusher was Greg Bell. He had 26 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Jesse Matthews, had 11 receptions for 175 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, CJ Baskerville would lead the Aztecs in tackles, as he had 9 of them, and he would also have the team's lone interception. With this win, the 24th ranked San Diego State Aztecs from the Mountain West Conference will finish their 2021 season with a 12-2 record. And with this loss, the UTSA Roadrunners from the Conference USA will finish their season with a 12-2 record. Now, taking a look at the other bowl game that took place yesterday, it was a matchup between the unranked Wyoming Cowboys and the Kent State Golden Flashes in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Famous is in the name. I'm not sure if it's that famous of a bowl, no offense. Wyoming would go on to beat Kent State 52-38 in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Wyoming outscored Kent State Kent State outscored Wyoming 24-21 in the first half, before Wyoming outscored Kent State 31-14 in the second half to come from behind and pick up a very big win. On the losing end of this matchup, the Kent State Golden Flashes were led by their starting quarterback, Dustin Crum. He threw for 316 yards and 4 touchdowns. He ran for 70 yards, and he had the team's lone rushing touchdown as well. He would finish with 386 total yards of offense, and he was responsible for all 5 of Kent State's touchdowns. On the ground, their leading rusher, Marquez Cooper, had 24 carries for 125 yards. Their second leading rusher, Brian Bradford, had 8 carries for 109 yards. Their leading receiver, Dante Cephas, had 4 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Nykeem Johnson, had 7 receptions for 101 yards. Their third leading receiver, Devontae Walker, had 173-yard touchdown reception. On the defensive side of the ball, Kent State was led in tackles by Dean Clark. He had 13 of them. Savon Taylor-Davis finished with 6 tackles for himself as he had 2 of the team's 3 sacks. On the winning end of this matchup, the Wyoming Cowboys were led by their starting quarterback, Levi Williams. Williams threw for 127 yards and a touchdown. He would also run for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 327 total yards of offense and 5 touchdowns in his name. Their second leading rusher, Xavier Baladay, would finish with 19 carries for 86 yards as he would finish with a rushing touchdown. Their third leading rusher, Trey Smith, had 5 carries for 73 yards as he had a touchdown. Wyoming's leading receiver, Isaiah Nayer, had 5 receptions for 85 yards and the team's lone receiving touchdown. He also fumbled, but on the defensive side of the ball, Wyoming's leading tackler was Chad Muma. He had half a sack. Easton Gibbs would finish with 11 sacks. Cole Gottbout finished with 10 tackles as he had a sack. Garrett Krall finished with 3 of Wyoming's tackles as he had a sack and a half. With this win, the unranked Wyoming Cowboys from the Mountain West finished their 2021 season with a 7-6 record. With this loss, the unranked Kent State Golden Flashes will finish their 2021 season with a 7-7 record. Those were the 2 college football bowl games that took place yesterday. And then, of course, looking forward to what's going on today, the only bowl game that will take place will be the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl as unranked Mizzou faces off against unranked Army. Taking a look at what went down with college basketball yesterday, starting with the 9th-ranked team in the nation, the Iowa State Cyclones would end up hosting the unranked Chicago State Cougars. Iowa State ended up beating Chicago State 79-48. They won this matchup by 31 after outscoring Chicago State by 11 in the first half and by 20 in the second. On the winning end of this matchup, the Cyclones were led in scoring by their starting guard, Isaiah Brockington. Their starting senior out of Philly would go on to finish with 20 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 steals in 36 minutes. Brockington shot 6 for 16 from the field and a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the 9th-ranked Iowa State Cyclones are 12-0. They are still undefeated on the season. With this loss, the unranked Chicago State Cougars are 4-8 on their season. Looking at the 10th-ranked team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide hosted the unranked Davidson Wildcats. Davidson would end up beating Alabama 79-78 after outscoring Alabama by 6 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the 10th-ranked Crimson Tide were led in scoring by their starting guard, Jaden Shackelford. Shackelford finished with 20 points and 5 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field, and he shot 4 for 11 from 3. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Davidson Wildcats were led by their starting forward, and Luka Brajkovic, their senior out of Austria, would go on to finish with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 30 minutes. He shot 10 for 16 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. Davidson starting guard Mike Jones out of Minnesota would go on to finish with 21 points in 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 11 from the field, a perfect 3 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the unranked Davidson Wildcats are 9-2. With this loss, the 10th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide are now 9-3. Taking a look at what went down with the 11th-ranked team in the nation, the Michigan State Spartans, faced off against the unranked Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Michigan State would end up beating Oakland 90-78. They won this matchup by 12 after they outscored Oakland by 9 in the first half. On the winning end of this matchup, the 11th-ranked Spartans were led in scoring by their starting forward, Marcus Bingham Jr. Their starting senior out of Grand Rapids would go on to finish with 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 blocks in 26 minutes. He shot 8 for 10 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. Their starting freshman guard out of Illinois, Max Christie, would finish with 17 points for himself in 31 minutes. He shot 6 for 8 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3 as well. With this win, the 11th-ranked Michigan State Spartans are now 10-2. With this loss, the unranked Oakland Golden Grizzlies are now 7-4 at this point in the season. Taking a look at what went down with the 18th ranked team in the nation, the Xavier Musketeers went to Villanova to face off against the Wildcats. The 23rd ranked Wildcats would end up beating the Musketeers 71-58. Villanova would win this matchup by 13 after they outscored Xavier by 21 in the second half, more than doubling Xavier's second half score. On the losing end of this matchup, the 18th ranked Xavier Musketeers were led by their guard off the bench, Dwan Odom. Dwan Odom would go on to finish with 13 points in 22 minutes, shooting 6 for 8 from the field and making his only 3-point attempt of the day. On the winning end of this matchup, the 23rd ranked Villanova Wildcats were led in scoring by their starting guard, Justin Moore. Justin Moore would go on to finish with 17 points and 2 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 16 from the field, then 3 for 6 from 3. With this win, the 23rd ranked Villanova Wildcats are now 1-1 in the Big East. And of course, with this loss, the 18th ranked Xavier Musketeers are now 11-2. They are also 1-1 in the Big East. Taking a look at the first football game in the NFL that took place last night, jumping out to Los Angeles, the LA Rams hosted the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams beat the Seahawks 20-10 after the score was tied at 3 at the half and tied at 10 at the end of the third quarter. The Rams would break the tie with a 29-yard touchdown pass from Stafford to Cooper Kupp, and then another field goal from Matt Gay would put the Rams out of arm's reach. On the losing end of this matchup, the Seattle Seahawks were led by their elite starting quarterback, Russell Wilson. Wilson would complete 17 of his 31 passes as he threw for 156 yards and an interception. Their leading rusher, DJ Dallas, finished with 8 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He had 3 receptions for 11 yards as he finished with 52 yards on the day with his rushing touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, the Seahawks were led in tackles by Jordan Brooks. He finished with 11 of them. Carlos Dunlap II would finish with 4 tackles as he had 3 of the team's 4 sacks. And then Quandre Diggs would go on to finish with an interception alongside his 7 tackles. On the winning end of this matchup, the Los Angeles Rams were led by their starting quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He would throw for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Their leading rusher, Sony Michel, finished with 18 carries for 92 yards. He also finished with 2 receptions for 23 yards. That would go on to be a total of 115 yards of offense on the year. The Rams' leading receiver, Cooper Kupp, finished with 9 receptions for 136 yards as he had both of the team's receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Ernest Jones finished with 11 tackles. The Rams' elite defensive end, Von Miller, finished with 6 tackles as he had a sack for himself. The Rams' go-to defensive tackle, Aaron Donald, finished with 5 tackles as he had a sack as well. And Taylor Rapp would finish with the team's lone interception as he had 3 tackles. With this win, the Los Angeles Rams are 10-4. With this loss, the Seattle Seahawks are 5-9. Taking a look at the other Tuesday night matchup, the Philadelphia Eagles hosted the Washington football team. And in this NFC East rivalry matchup, the Eagles would end up beating Washington 27-17. After an even 10-10 first half, the Eagles outscored Washington 17-7 in the second half, the difference being their third quarter where they shut Washington out 10-0. On the losing end of this matchup, the Washington football team was led by their starting quarterback, Garrett Gilbert. Gilbert would throw for 194 yards on the day. Their leading tackler on the defensive side was Jeremy Reeves. He finished with 12 of them on the day. Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis would each finish with 10 tackles each. And Landon Collins would finish with the team's lone interception alongside his 7 tackles. On the winning end of this matchup, the Philadelphia Eagles were led by their starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts would throw for 296 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 334 total yards of offense and 3 touchdowns. The Eagles' leading rusher, Miles Sanders, had 18 carries for 131 yards, as he also had 15 yards through the air. That's 146 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Dallas Goedert, had 7 receptions for 135 yards. On the defensive end of the ball, Alex Singleton would lead the Eagles in tackles as he had 8 of them. Fletcher Cox, their elite defensive tackle, would finish with 3 tackles as he had both of the team's sacks. With this win, the Philadelphia Eagles are now 7-7, and with this loss, the Washington football team is now 6-8 on the year. That concludes all matchups from Week 16 as we are entering the last 3 weeks of the NFL season. Taking a look at what's going on in the NBA from yesterday's matchup, starting off in Miami, the Heat hosted the Indiana Pacers. The Heat would beat the Pacers 125-96. The Heat won this game by 29 after they outscored the Pacers by 23 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Indiana Pacers were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Caris LeVert, and their shooting guard off the bench, Chris Duarte. LeVert finished with 17 points in 30 minutes as he shot 4 for 15 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Duarte finished with 17 points and 2 steals in 19 minutes. He shot 5 for 7 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Miami Heat were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Duncan Robinson, and their guard off the bench, Tyler Hero. Robinson will go on to finish with 26 points in 30 minutes. He shot 10 for 16 from the field and 6 for 10 from 3. Hero finished with 26 points and 5 assists in 21 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. The Heat's elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, finished with 8 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, and 2 steals in 30 minutes. He shot 3 for 9 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Miami Heat are now 19-13, and with this loss, the Indiana Pacers are now 13-19. Taking a look at what went through Madison Square Garden, the Knicks hosted the Detroit Pistons. The Knicks would end up beating the Pistons 105-91. They won this matchup by 14 after they outscored the Pistons by 11 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Pistons were led in scoring by their point guard off the bench. Saben Lee would go on to finish with 16 points. He would also go on to finish with 2 steals in 25 minutes. Lee shot 7 for 15 from the field, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Evan Fournier. Fournier finished with 22 points in 41 minutes. He shot 9 for 24 from the field and 4 for 11 from 3. Their starting power forward and former All-Star Julius Randle finished with 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 turnovers. He did all this in 38 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field. He would also go on to shoot 4 for 5 from the foul line. The Knicks' elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, finished with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 40 minutes. He shot 8 for 21 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 14-17. With this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 5-25. Looking in what's going on at New Orleans, the Pelicans hosted the Portland Trailblazers. The Pelicans would end up beating the Trailblazers 111-97. The Pelicans won this matchup by 14 after they outscored the Blazers by 11 in the fourth quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Portland Trailblazers were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard out of Weber State, Damian Lillard. He finished with 39 points, 2 rebounds, and 7 assists in 40 minutes. He shot 13 for 24 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the New Orleans Pelicans were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward, Brandon Ingram out of Duke. Ingram finished with 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 12 for 22 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 5 from the foul line. Their shooting guard off the bench, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, finished with 27 points in 26 minutes. He shot 10 for 16 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt on the night. Their starting shooting guard, Josh Hart, finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 41 minutes. He shot 7 for 10 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are 11-21, and with this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 13-19. Taking a look now at what's going on in Dallas, the Mavericks hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Mavericks would end up beating the Timberwolves 114-102. They won this matchup by 12 as they outscored the Timberwolves by 12 in the second quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Timberwolves were led in scoring by their elite starting center out of Kentucky, Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns finished with 26 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and 5 turnovers in 38 minutes. He shot 9 for 14 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell, finished with 14 points and 12 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 4 for 18 from the field, 1 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. The Timberwolves starting shooting guard, Malik Beasley out of Florida State, finished with 22 points in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field and 6 for 12 from 3. On the winning end of this matchup, the Dallas Mavericks were led in scoring by their starting point guard, Jalen Brunson. Brunson finished with 28 points, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 40 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and he shot 5 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 15-15. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 15-16. Last but not least, taking a look at what went down in the Staples Center or the Crypto.com arena. I'm going to correct myself. The Phoenix Suns were able to beat the Los Angeles Lakers 108-90. The Suns won this matchup by 18 after they outscored the Lakers by 16 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Los Angeles Lakers were led in scoring by their goated starting small forward, LeBron James. He finished with 34 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes. He shot 13 for 19 from the field. He shot 2 for 5 from 3 and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Russell Westbrook, finished with 22 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 7 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 20 from the field and 2 for 4 from the foul line. On the other end of this matchup, the Phoenix Suns were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Kentucky, Devin Booker. He finished with 24 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 turnovers in 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. The Phoenix Suns' elite starting point guard out of Wake Forest, Chris Paul, would finish with 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists in 29 minutes. He shot 5 for 8 from the field, and he made his only free throw attempt on the night. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 25-5, and with this loss, the Los Angeles Lakers are now 16-16 on the year. Taking a look at what went down overseas, starting off with the English Carabao Cup, Arsenal was able to beat Sunderland 5-1 as two of their goals. They had to get a hat trick from Edward Nketiah. With this win, they will now advance to the semifinal round of this tournament. Taking a look at what went down in La Liga, Barcelona drew with a 1-1 match versus Sevilla, and in the Italian Serie A, Juventus hosted Cagliari and was able to pull away with a 2-0 win. Their first goal coming in the 40th minute from Moise Kean, and then their second goal coming from Bernardeschi in the 83rd minute. So that is everything that I have for you regarding yesterday's matchups. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 23 minutes of this piece. And I also want to thank the ESPN, the FIFA, the NCAA, NFL, and NBA websites for giving me all the stats and figures so that I'm able to do this episode. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm ready to come back tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow will be Thursday, December 23rd, for another episode of The Elite. So until then, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow. Peace out.